Now that we have developed our topic, our general purpose, and our specific purpose, we're ready to move on to the final piece of establishing what our speech is going to specifically be about, and that is to develop our thesis statement. So a thesis statement, if you recall from our first class, is a combination of two things. It's going to be a combination of your specific purpose plus main points. If you remember, the specific purpose is what the speech is about. The main points are how you will tell us what that speech is about. And so when we put those two things together, we start to have a clear preview that falls at the end of our introduction and allows our audience to know exactly what we're talking about and how you're going to do that. You as well are going to become more organized because you now know exactly what you're going to be focusing on, and it's going to hopefully make some logical sense depending upon your specific purpose. So the topic is one thing, but what we are going to be focusing on to write our thesis statement is in fact this specific purpose that we've come up with. But before we start to write that thesis statement, it's important to note that there are particular patterns of organization when it comes to informative speech topics. The different types of patterns of organization are, and I will go over these with you, chronological. Chronological means in order of time. So there's some kind of time pattern or time focus that will organize your main points. There is also another pattern of organization that is called topical organization. Topical organization will organizes the main points by topics. So you may be comfortable and familiar with this type of organization already. You have in fact already done it. So to inform you about myself, right? To inform you about, or for you to get to know me a little bit better today, I'll tell you about my job, my family, and what I like to do on weekends. Job, family, what I like to do on weekends don't have anything in common with each other except for you, the actual topic. And so in that case, that's where we start to organize. But so it's organized by topics. And then we also have spatial. And so spatial organization follows a pattern of direction. So this is something where we're saying north to south, top to bottom, front to back, outside to inside. Potentially that would be a way to organize my process. And then the last one that we have is crumb cake. Is it? And you know what? I just want to make sure that your class, that I did it as a problem solution. Did I do that? And how did I even, hold on, y'all. Think through this really quickly. I want to make sure that I did it right. Just going back into our class. Okay. No. Okay, great. I will go ahead and also share with you. Let me go ahead. So the last type is going to be causal. So causal speeches inform audiences about like the cause and effect of a cause and effect. So we know the cause and effect of something that's already taken place. So if I wanted to inform my audience about the reasons women are paid less in the workplace. Potentially there's specific causes that lead to that, and then the impact leads to them being paid less in the workplace. I'm going to go through each of these with you on our on our Canvas page to show you really quickly how it is laid out here, and you can always go back and take a look as well. So on your under your module, you'll have something called organizing your main points and organizing main styles. And their preferred styles or templates for organizing the main points of the speech. And like we said, chronological before. So chronological, and I do want to go over that with you, is that when you have a speech, I'm going to put these side by side. So in terms of chronological organization, like it says in your bright space here, that each of the patterns of organization are going to be determined, which you are going to use a specific one depending upon the specific purpose of your speech. So the great thing is that, and Melissa, was it you who did the Mongolian? Is that who? Or Sarah, so sorry.
No, that was me.
Oh, okay, Sophie, fantastic.
Yeah.
So Sophie, like we talked about, if we were to talk, if she was to put Mongolia, right, then that would be a place. But also, like if we're talking about to inform, that doesn't make any sense. But then when we see here, oh, to inform my audience about the Mongolian Derby, I know that specifically this speech is in fact an event. And then the same as a career as an astronaut, this is more of a concept. Right? And then up here, if we look at to inform my audience about Santa Monica College, that's a place. And then to inform my audience about student services at Santa Monica College, that's a concept. Does that make sense? So each of these start to differentiate. And for each of you to be able to identify which one you have is going to be key to knowing what pattern of organization is most effective to use. When it comes to patterns of organization, things like chronological, and we think about time, as it says here in the reading of the organizing main points, most common types of speeches organized in chronological order are people, events, issues, and concepts. So I'm going to put that one here and say people, events, issues, and concepts. So if you are going to be talking about a specific person, for example, think about their life. So think about the lifespan of a team, think about the lifespan of a band, think about the lifespan of a person. How can we organize this most effectively? If you think about chronological, and if you think about anything that you've learned or watched in life, if you're watching a biography like of somebody on television, they're not going to start with the middle of their life and then go back to the beginning and then go to the middle again and then go to the end. It's going to confuse the watcher. And so they'll typically start with, oh, here was the origin, and then here was the growth, and then here is like the career stuff, and then here was the end. And so we'll break it down into different patterns that make sense for us chronologically. When it comes to choosing your main points for a speech of 5 to 7 minutes, you now have the opportunity to build out more main points if you wanted to. And so when we're considering balance and thinking about how many to include, it is a good idea to have no more than 5 main points, and of course, no less than 2. But 2 main points is suffice. 3 main points, 4 main points, however you want to do it, knowing what you can fit into 5 to 7 minutes of time. So knowing that, if we are looking at a particular person, or then if we think about an event, if we want to describe an event to somebody, we could always talk about like how the event came to be. Then we can talk about maybe even like the first events, how it's changed over the years, what it means, right? So there's different ways to chronologically organize that. If you want to talk about, for example, the events of 9/11, it could be like, what happened to the first hijacked plane into the first tower, the second tower, the Pentagon, the Flight 63, right? So those could be those 4 different ways that you can describe what happened, in fact, that day, if you wanted to, and do it in the time period that it did happen. So I have here on the left side of the screen, if you're seeing, so for instance, a speech about Oprah Winfrey might be arranged chronologically, right? From the birth to the present time, etc. So we can see here that it's Oprah's career can be understood through 4 key interconnected life stages. So the main points are going to be the childhood, the career, the tenure, and the most recent venture own. Now, how I would write that in a different way. So if I'm thinking about how to start to communicate all that together, we could even look at our an example of maybe somebody's own somebody else. What did this example do to narrow down Oprah Winfrey? To talk about the life of Oprah Winfrey is a lot. Just like to talk about the life of Kobe Bryant would be a lot. I could talk about it, and I could talk about her career in broadcasting and her TV show and her personal life and abuse and her, longtime partner and her best friend Gail, and I could do all those things, but really nailing it down. And what this concept is then just talking about her career, to talk about the career of Oprah Winfrey, to talk about the basketball career of Kobe Bryant. That helps us to nail down so that we can start about when they started their career, how their career grew, and then maybe like how their career is remembered. So in these different ways. So if we're talking about events, so like you were talking about, Sophie, feel free to think about how you could organize this in terms of like timing. If it's an event that lasts over time, you could also be like, oh, this is like the first day, this is the second, this is the third. Or you can talk about like how it originated, how it's grown, and what it will be in the future. So it's like you could do a past, present, future. You could do a ABC.
So what I have written so far is to inform my audience about the Mongolian Derby, I will describe the role of the horse in Mongolian culture, the history of the race, and the experience of the riders. Which wouldn't that be a topical organization though?
Absolutely. And then logically, just think about your audience. Do I need to know about the history before I know about the horse?
Yes.
So I would switch those. So that's just that kind of like, so for topical organization, still, yeah, just remembering those. Even if it's topical, one should probably come before the other.
Okay.
Great job. Great job. So if we're talking about an issue, if we could talk about how the issue developed, what's going on, how it's manifested, where it is. If we're talking about a concept, so let's say something that you're learning in your class, remember it's like, oh, okay, well, like when did this individual come up with the theory and out of what? How does that then, how do they then start using it in society? How is it then utilized today and how can we see it? So it could be something of that nature. I also had a student last semester who talked about, oh gosh, it was so smart. And it was about the, trying to think of when it was like about, and this was over summer, so just give me a second. But they did the, I'll remember it and then I'll let you know, but it was something about the way of which a particular personality disorder was treated over time. And it was really fascinating to watch what they thought it was, how those individuals developed then and what it moved to in a different time period with different ideologies, and then like how we see that same pathology like today. So that's something to think about as well. So for a chronological organization, does anybody have any other questions? Just knowing based upon your specific purpose, then, okay, is this a person, is an event, is an issue, a concept? Could I organize it chronologically? Is that going to be most effective? I'm going to go with spatial organization. Why don't I do spatial next? Types of spatial organization have to do with following this pattern of direction. And so when we're talking about spatial organization, we want to think about like, so what types of things would be organized spatially? In this case, speeches that are about objects or places are typically done spatially. So let's think about why. If you are going to a place, for example. So let's see who's here. So Ford, are you there? Could you help me? Okay. Or Diego, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Thanks, Diego. Hello. How are you? So Diego, have you ever been to Disneyland?
Yeah, I have.
When you go to Disneyland, what do they hand you at the counter along with your ticket?
Oh, I haven't been in so long, but the last time I went was for grad night,
Uh-huh.
and they only gave us like a badge.
Oh, a badge. All right. Well, I like it.
Yeah.
I never
So
worked for grad night. I love that. Well, typically, let's see. Have you ever been to the mall?
yeah,
Have you ever wondered where a store is in the mall?
yeah.
Where do you go to?
I usually in the mall they have like a map.
Ah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Okay, good. So if we think about places, think about them much like a map, if you will. And so, for example, like in Disneyland, the first thing they hand you is a map along with
Map.
your ticket
Oh
because they
yeah.
don't want you to get lost. Because if you get lost, then you're not going to be at the happiest place on earth, right? So the same
Yeah.
thing for us in our class. We want you to stay on track and we want you to not get lost. And so in terms of places, individuals will often like do it by location. And so they'll do it spatially by this pattern of direction. And so if we think about a place like Disneyland, and if you were to, in fact, like, look up, if I went, what are you doing here? Right. And if we even like open this up, we know that Disneyland has so many things that we can talk about. That's going to be a lot. How do I start to put all of the, oh geez, of course somebody has all these, right? So how do I start to put every last thing about this place into a 5-minute speech? A good way is to think about it in terms of direction. And so if you're even thinking about doing something like to explain like Los Angeles, to inform you about Los Angeles, California, we could do that in pattern of direction by starting with the south side of Los Angeles, going to the east side of Los Angeles, describing North Los Angeles, and finally ending at West Los Angeles. Each one is a different enclave of culture within Los Angeles. They have different features and things about it, but at least that allows us to encapsulate each of these different ways. So here with Disneyland, we know that Disneyland is organized by what, Diego? Different types of, they're called like
locations.
yeah, these locations, like this one right here on the screen is called
Adventureland.
right. And then we have Frontierland and all those different types of things. So what we say here, for example, let me bring this one back here. All right. And so what we can do, for example, is start to utilize those directions as our main points. So we could think about, like, I will take you on a direction through Disneyland today. I will describe, I will first tour Main Street. Then we will move up to Tomorrowland. I will then move over to Toontown and something like that. Because if I had you write down every single thing that we know about Disneyland, it'd be like, oh, there's rides and there's food and there's fireworks and there's the Matterhorn and there's the line and there's churros and there's all these things. And we can talk about all those things, but let's keep them organized in some way, shape, or form. When it comes to things like places, you may start to notice a specific pattern also forming for like how you organize each of these things. So if I was to take, and let me just take this Disneyland example. I'm going to say something like to inform my audience about Disneyland. And then I know that my thesis statement is a copy of my specific purpose and my main points. So all I'm going to do is put this in front and this behind. And now we have this. Okay, so I'm going to put a GP and SP. And then I'm so sorry, I never use a mouse, and this new setup has me doing that, and it's simple more so that too. And then this is your thesis. And there we go. And finally, we will end with adventure and Frontierland. Here is what a thesis statement could look like. In your first one, you're going to have something called Main Street, right? And what you'll start to learn next week is that your main points are designated by Roman numerals. So it would be like Main Street, and then it will be Tomorrowland. But within each of these main points, what you will do is still address all the things that you wanted, just in a more organized manner. So it's like in every land, there are specific things. I will tell you about the attractions, I don't know, or the characters you can find there. But the best part is that once you do that, you know that the same thing's going to happen in your next one. For Tomorrowland, I'm going to tell you about the attractions, the restaurants, and the special events. And so each of your main points will have the same subpoint organization. Sorry, that just didn't go right. The same patterns of organization there. Does that make sense to y'all? I had a student one time who did a speech on Las Vegas, the Las Vegas Strip in specific. So something like, to inform my audience about the Las Vegas Strip, I will explain the north part, middle and south end of the strip. And so what this individual did is they took the north and they were able to talk about the hotels, the club and shows you can see, right? Or the restaurants, clubs, hotels, whatever. And then you do that for each single one. We can't talk about all the hotels. We can't talk all about all the restaurants, but we'll pick out a few or a couple that, you know, are illustrated and that feel good to the audience. So, or that could be fun for you to talk about. Does this make sense, y'all? Yes, no, maybe so.
I had a quick question.
I am so glad. Yes.
So I don't think my topic is going to be the spatial or like the places, because I wanted to write one about gender pronouns and how it was popularized, and my specific purpose is to
Oh, wait.
inform-
Hold on 1 second. Wait 1 second. I'm gonna make sure this is louder. Okay. Okay. Hold on. There we go. Okay, could you say that one more time, but just a little bit louder?
Yes.
I know that yours doesn't fit into these two, and we can also do, yeah, another one. What was your specific purpose?
My topic is gender pronouns, and specific purpose is to inform my audience about the purpose of gender pronouns.
Okay.
And yeah, I was wondering how the thesis would be formatted, since it's not regarding place, and I think it falls under the topic
It does.
one.
Because this would be a concept, absolutely. So if we were thinking about topical, let's go into that now. The topical, or so we have our chronological here, patterns of organization with the chronological. We have that one, and then we have spatial, right, which follow this pattern of organization. Let me finish up this spatial really quickly in terms of an object. So if you're thinking about an object, y'all, that is something else that you can describe from a spatial perspective. If you've ever designed your own car online, that's a really fun one to look at. They will have you, and you can always talk and inform us about a specific type of car if you wanted to as well, if you're like a big junkie on cars. But it'll talk about like the exterior of the car, the interior of the car, and then like the motor engine and what that's compartmentalized of. So it kind of builds from the outside and goes to the inside. I had a student one semester who did a speech on a particular shoe. And so he talked about the exterior of the shoe, the interior of the shoe, and then the sole of the shoe. And that was a way to actually describe the features, the functions, the structure, and the creation of that shoe, because that's really what he wanted to talk about. So in terms of objects, if you're thinking about describing something like a bicycle, or I don't know, a piece of technology, think about how you can do it from the outside in. So those are objects, and places are often done best spatially, chronologically. People, events, concepts, and issues is going to be great. We also have, so let me go to topical next, since that was our question on this one. So I'm going to come down here and we'll go with topical organization. Topical organization is going to organize by topics that like relate, topic related. So they don't have a connection to anything else, like I said, except for the topic itself. And it's obviously going to help expand upon it. So there, when we talk about the purpose, in this case of something, it's like I'm almost wondering, Yuma, if you think a little bit about, because I'm not quite sure what your main points are yet. And once we look at those, maybe that will help out. But I'm even thinking, I don't know if we want to do this as maybe more causal, even.
Yeah, I was thinking of like either reviewing the history of it, like why it became popularized, or just like the basic definition and informing the audience about like what it means in the different types.
Okay, so then maybe, so we want to, I would say then to hold this, because those are going to be like 3 different ideas right there. Those would be 3 different speeches. So to inform my audience about the historical use of gender pronouns, that one would be chronological, and it'd be a really easy way to set it up by like, how did this start in society? I mean, our language is gendered, right? And then, like you were saying, how this has become like, how the rise has started and like what that need is. And then finally, like where we are today and where this is going for people. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, the only thing is that within this, we can talk about, we don't want to tell people that it's right or wrong to do it, simply that it's being done and that it's being done for a reason. We're not going to say that reason is good or bad, but it will be inherent and implicit in your conversation as to why it is. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So you can do that historical use if you wanted to, but you could also do to inform my audience of the, and like you said, did you say the purpose of?
Yeah, the purpose of.
Okay, so perfect. So for the purpose of, for identification. And this one is also one that you could very easily take out to the next, speech, even if you wanted to, if there's anything within that element that you wanted to talk about persuasively. So in terms of the historical use, did that make sense to you, how it could be chronological?
Yeah.
Okay. And then is there another one that you wanted to work out?
No, I was just kind of thinking of either the history of it and the development, or the reason and like why it's used and how people use it.
Okay, using gender pronouns. That's how, to inform my audience about using gender pronouns. That could be a one to do in that way. Describing like what they are, why they are necessary, how they impact people, or like what they are, how they impact people. That could be like it too, so that's what I'm thinking, like cause effect.
Yeah.
In that way, it's like, well, here's how it's used and here's how it impacts people. You could do one of those too, as well.
I'll probably go with the historical. I think it'll be the most easy to organize.
I think it will too, because you're going to be able to address the issues in that other one, the topical one, within that history, just within different places. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. Yes. Like under the main points.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yay. All right.
Thank
So
you.
keep that. You are so welcome. So keeping that in mind, I like that idea, the historical use, and then that also gives you something specific to research, which is really great. Okay, so the topical related means topic related. If you have any of the speeches, so a people, a place, an event, a concept, an issue, an object, they can all be done topically. Every single one can be done topically. We teach these other patterns of organization because they could also be like more effective topically. People will sometimes use it as a catch-all and like just make a topical speech. When they look at those specific topics, you realize, oh wait, maybe I do have like something different. But topical speeches are 100% valid. They work very well. I simply want you to look at different options just in case you want to do something else that may be more effective. But topical organizations, like we said, if we were going to do one of these above that we've already done, it would be like to inform my audience about Disneyland. I will tell you about the attractions, restaurants, and special events never spelled restaurants right. So this would be topical organization. I have 3 main points here that aren't really following a pattern, but it's still going to get our job done. Does that make sense? The last type we have here is causal, this cause and effect that something is taking place. So let me go up here. I'm going to show you back in here. So causal. So causal speech informs audience members about causes and effects that have already happened. In other words, causal organization style first addresses some cause and then it shares what effect resulted. So for example, here is shingles. This is an interesting to inform my audience about the prevalence of the disease shingles led to the invention of the vaccine. I will describe the painful presence in society and then how it became managed. So what we could do is this idea of like how one thing has led to another. So does anybody have any spatial or causal speeches that you were looking at, this cause and effect impact potentially? So if there's any, right now there's been like, for example, like to inform my audience about the, obviously COVID is one that we've done a cause, quote unquote, and an effect, but we also, like what are results that we have now because of something in history? Maybe that's what you wanted to look at, or, what is this new abortion ban? That's the effect. What was the cause of it? What were some of the causes of the January 6th insurrection that we've come to know about? What were some of the causes of what are some of the causes of the fentanyl epidemic in our country, right? So those are what you could do, give us some of the reasons as to why that is started and then what it is affecting or impacting, if you will. So if somebody has a cause and effect, it is going to be 2 main points, simply laying out first what the cause was and then laying out the effect in that way. So for a causal speech, obviously it's going to be something like an issue, or perchance it will be a concept, but it can also be like a phenomenon if you wanted to talk about like the events of Hurricane Katrina, the effect. And how that impacted Louisiana, if that makes sense. Or like the earthquake of 69, how did it affect our current power grid? I don't know, I'm making this up. I don't think it was 69, it was like 66 or something. Does this make sense to everyone, or at least a little bit? Okay. The one thing I want to do here is go back. Oh, wait. Oh, I'm sorry. I never moved you back to the actual paper. You were just looking at the shingles as I'm sitting here typing. What I want to show you all is another thing here. If I go back to Wikipedia, what I want you to realize is that Wikipedia also uses our same kind of pattern of organization. And it's just because these are something that, that's what we do. Everybody has these same kind of patterns of organizations with information. It's not just public speaking. Your textbooks are set up like this. And in fact, these encyclopedias are even set up to describe things in best inform. So if I was to say somebody like, maybe I am doing my speech. I am doing it on the Notorious B. B-I-G. So maybe I'm doing this on Biggie Smalls, the Notorious B.I.G., and that's who I want to do my speech on. Now, the individual has a huge career, but great thing about Wikipedia that I encourage all of you to use is this contents area. If you've seen, and I know I did this a little bit at the beginning, but they've organized these main points already for you that you could start to look at and maybe pick out. Now, these are topical organizations, as we're noticing. However, if I wanted to make my speech specifically about, to inform my audience about the career and life of Biggie Smalls or Notorious B.I.G., I can also do it by date. And so I could do it by date, but I could also just say his early life, his initial release of his first album and Marriage to Faith Evans, his rise to fame in the mid-90s, and finally his death and aftermath. And in this, I could also just narrow it down to his music career. And so within each of those spaces, I could talk about his early career, and then I would only talk about like what he did in his early career. Then I'd talk about like his booming career, this like where he grew, where he became like super famous, the Junior Mafia, the Diddy, the all that, and then go to the end of his career and how that came to be. The one that I wanted to show you, I'm quite sure that we can look also at our so if I put something in here like the Mongolian Derby, right? Here, we are looking at the Mongol Derby, an equestrian endurance race. So history here, right, and how it went, past winners. Oh, there's a film. All right, this may not have the best one, but it clearly shows like this historical way, what happens during the race. How long does these usually take? I don't even know if she's hearing me. Oh, okay. She may have left, Sophie. Okay, so we won't go through that one, but it actually works. Let me do the so we can always look at the career of an astronaut if we wanted to, or an astronaut here. I don't know if there's going to be anything in. It's going to talk definition, terminology, space travel milestones, training. So this may have our training, right? And so here's the candidacy requirements, maybe like what they go through. So it's like, okay, like steps on doing so. That may be something. That one may be best by just looking at the website and how they do that. We can also look up gender pronouns and check in here. And so gender neutrality in language with gender third person pronouns, gender pronoun. Let's see what this says. Overview of gender neutral programs, reference to emergence of gender neutral program, no, emergence of the gendered programs, no. So in this case, these may not be our best for Wikipedia. However, what those maybe are better through different types of websites. So like we were saying before, NASA, going to NASA itself, and then like becoming an astronaut. So you want to be an astronaut. There it is. Yeah, right. So some astronaut, requirements, how it does, what does it take, get some experiences, then what do people do, like finally when they are astronauts, what are the like jobs or careers that they can go to. So they have already headings and ways that this is organized for clarity and thought. And I encourage you to look at things of the nature. The GLAAD Media Institute has a really awesome description of, and this is what I use for my gender class in terms of language and pronouns and what they do in training. So really it's about educating individuals in all of this. If you wanted to cruise on over and check out any of these different types of things, courses, consulting, and research. Where is their media guide? There we go, the GLAD Media Guide, 11th edition. I always feel like it has a real good setup as to why, how, and in what way we need to use this. But it's done, it's done for journalism and journalists in specific, and then it has a lot of different articles and research and resources that you can use. Basically the idea as to why we do it, why we use pronouns, and then what are the effective uses. You could do something like that if you wanted. So those are some ways that you could look at it as well. So feel free to utilize the resource, like I said, of Wikipedia. I think that it helps to see how organization is, and it also helps you, I forgot this part, to go through, but I'm sure that all of you know this already. If I click on here, the other great thing about it is that better down at the bottom, what you'll be able to find is a works cited. And so any type of evidence or any resource that has references is always great, but you can come here and you can also search through for more references that may in fact support your topic a bit better and can provide you with some more information. Because remember, you're going to have 3 outside sources in this speech. So for each of you, if we are thinking about writing that thesis statement, I'm going to stop this over here. I'm going to return my screen to here. So if we come back up to the example about Santa Monica College, I'm going to add the 4th part of my assignment and requirement right here. All I am going to do, oops, sorry, this was here. This is your specific purpose. So for your thesis, remember, all it is your specific purpose and main points. You're going to copy, cut, and paste, right? Oh, well, that didn't work out at all. That's funny. And then you're going to add your main points. I will describe its history. Now I know my 3 points. So this is going to be what I talk about in my speech. So to inform my audience about Santa Monica College, I will describe its history, its majors and degrees, and some student organizations and activities. If I did student services at Santa Monica College, let's say this is my thesis statement. I will discuss academic services, counseling services, and liaisons. Right, and we would just list the different types of services that they would be, and that will be narrowed down. Is anyone here thinking I cannot write this thesis, or do any of you have an example that you want to throw out at me again that I can help you with and I can write it for you before I move on to just showing you how to do the assignments for the week? All right, everybody. You let me know, but I'm going to hit, I'm going to go back into our class shell. And then I'm going to go through a couple things over here. What we will look at is first this assignment, which is for your library. After you do your, after you do the library tutorial, you're going to have an assignment to do. So let's go through this together. The assignment's